Hello, and welcome to the Coach's Cup. I am Sonya Green, your host, and today I want to talk about blame, specifically self blame. Blaming ourselves is a natural response to when we all of our mistakes, right? We often find it easier to internalize our failures, to believe that we're the only people responsible for negative outcomes. Um, But the truth is, self blame can have adverse effects on our own mental health. A lot of research is showing that excessive self blame can lead to increased stress, increased anxiety, depression. And as a coach, helping people work through blame is one of the things that I do on a regular basis because as parents, as partners, as friends, we all have moments where we feel we could have made a better choice or handled something different. As I think about it as a parent, and for me, that's been on a daily basis. There's always something I wish I could have done that better. I wish I could have handled that better. It's easy to blame ourselves in those moments. But I want to talk about this because blame is one of those emotions that really doesn't do anything good for us. It doesn't do anything to help us, to move us forward. We don't grow when we're in blame, self blame. So I want to talk about it and talk about how to move out of that in those moments where we find ourselves blaming ourselves for something that we've done. Blame comes from shame. If you are looking at I think I've told you all before, I have a feelings wheel that kind of helps me. I have it on my wall right above my desk so that I can refer to it. And if you look at blame on that feelings wheel, it comes out of the core feeling of shame. And shame, we know, is rooted in darkness. It grows in darkness. And if it goes unchecked, it can take over our mental state, which is why it leads to that increased depression and anxiety and stress. The thing that we cannot do from that place of darkness, that place of shame and blame, is we can't learn, we can't assess from that place of darkness, right? If I am blaming myself for being a bad mother, I can't do anything positive from that place of darkness. I'm going to hide in there and I'm going to feel like an awful mom. Um, I had a client a few weeks ago who has a young child who was feeling the child was feeling some anxiety because the parent was going to be going on a trip. And I think we've all been in that spot, whether it's leaving your child in daycare, whether it's leaving and going on a trip or a conference or, whatever. And the child feels anxious. They feel some separation anxiety for what's going to happen. And we start blaming ourselves for being a bad parent. But if we just sit in that place and feel like we're being a bad parent, we're never going to get to be a better parent. And if you're listening to this podcast, then I think that's the goal, right? You're here because you want to learn how to grow, how to do things better. In the same way, if it's a work situation, if you've made a bad choice at work and you just sit and blame yourself, you hide away, you disconnect from people, you can't grow from that place. You can't get better if you're in that place. And so self blame is not useful to us in any way. What we have to do is learn to shift from that self-blame to taking responsibility. But how do we do that? How do you go from this place where you're hiding away, you're in this dark space? You have to get curious is one of the first things that you can do. When you get curious, you're shining a light on the situation. For the mom who's getting ready to go on the trip, why is my child reacting in this way? For that particular situation, I've had enough years in parenting that I've noticed patterns. Children get more anxious, they get that separation anxiety more at certain ages. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe when we go back and look at it, this child is going through a stage. Also, there could be things that we can't always make our children comfortable, right? That's not good for them any more than it's good for us. We're not growing when we're comfortable. We grow in those moments of discomfort, unfortunately. So getting curious, shining a light on why this is happening, it may mean that you're not doing anything wrong at all, and you don't need to change anything at all. This is just the way it has to be for your child in this moment. They have to get past this and learn to grow through it as well. If you keep blaming yourself, you can't assess that because you're too busy turning the focus on you. Why am I such a bad mother? Why do I always, because then we start generalizing, right? Why do I always make bad choices? Why do I always, and we go down a path that's not beneficial for any of us. If we're in the workplace, it's not beneficial for our team, for the people that we are working next to. If we're a parent, it's not good for our children. If we're a partner, it's not good for our spouse or our significant other. Blame doesn't help any of us. And so shining a light on it, getting curious is a way to move out of the darkness, out of the shame and blame. And it gives ourselves also the gift of the power to change. Because if I'm blaming myself, I'm really taking away all my power, right? Oh, I'm always such a bad mother. I'm always such a bad coworker. There's no power in that. But when we make that shift to, I made this choice in this moment, and I start to assess that choice for what it is, even deciding if it was a good or bad choice, then we've given ourselves power to grow, to move forward, to learn something. It still may not feel great, right? It still is not easy to walk out that door when your child is crying, even if you know it's the best thing for them in that situation. It's not an easy thing to do, so I'm not saying it makes it any easier, but it does give you power. It gives you room to learn and grow. You deal with the issue, but you can do it from a place of knowing that you're trying to do better, that you're trying to learn, and that you're trying to think about what you can learn from this for the next time that it happens. That's a much more productive space than beating yourself up, than blaming yourself. No parent ever became a better parent by beating themselves up. No one ever got better at their job by telling themselves how stupid they were, right? Think about those people. I it always stops me in my tracks when somebody says, "Oh, I'm so stupid." What's going on there? It's not growth and it's not learning. So, blame is not going to move us forward. It's not going to push the dial forward. I One of my favorite researchers on this topic is Kristen Neff, Dr. Kristen Neff. She's a psychologist and she focuses on self compassion. If you haven't, I will tell you that I have learned more and I have referred this book to so many people. Her book, Self Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, it is such a good book. It really changed the way I thought about myself. I thought about my mistakes. I looked at blame. It's just a really powerful book. So I would encourage you, if you're a reader, to read it, to listen to it on your commute. But it's a really good book, and it helps you to see the line between blaming yourself and actually being kind to yourself, which is what you have to do if you're going to learn from your mistakes, right? And she teaches 3 tenets of self-compassion. They are self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. And practicing self-kindness, it is a practice. It's not something that most of us do very often if we're not trying to grow, if we're not into self-development. But if we're blaming ourselves, then we have to realize, okay, if I'm blaming myself for a mistake, I have a conscience. I may not have been at my best in that moment, but I was doing the best I could in that moment. And we have to acknowledge that. We have to be kind to ourselves. In that moment, I was doing the best I could do. Maybe it wasn't great. Maybe it really stunk, but it was the best I could do in that moment. Now, what can I learn from it? That's that self-kindness piece. And if you've heard me talk about bringing down the anxiety, bringing down the negative feelings by, putting your hand over on your chest or rubbing yourself on the arm, like that skin to skin contact, that comes from her. And I do that frequently. If I'm feeling anxious about a situation, I'll put my hand on my chest. Everything's good. I'm safe right now. I may have made a bad choice, but now I'm going to look at it. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to be kind to myself instead of beating myself up. We can use that in so many situations in our daily lives. Her second tenet is common humanity, and this is the one that I find so useful. If you are in no BS, this is the concept to normalize. We are we are all out there making mistakes every day. If we are living, we are making mistakes. That's the one thing we know for a fact. It's part of being human. And so if you can treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend in those situations, that shift to, would I treat my friend this way? Would I say these things to my friend? When we're in that blaming space, we can say some awful things to ourselves that we would never say to anybody else. Let's move out of that and think about the common humanity, the things that we all share. In fact, I like to take this step a step further. And, we were talking about how blame comes from that root feeling of shame, and shame grows in darkness. If we can share these moments with a friend, how often have you shared something that you've done with a friend and instantly feel better? You've put a light on the if it was a mistake, if it was just something that happened and, I was getting ready to leave, my child started crying, begging me not to go. I felt like the worst mother in the world. What's your friend gonna do in that moment? Probably, if your friends are like my friends, they're gonna laugh with you, and then they're gonna say, "You know what? I can remember when," and they're gonna start telling a similar story. We come out of those stories stronger. We come out of them stronger because we have that connection with our friend. We've also normalized the situation. Instead of, "Oh, I'm such an awful mother. My child's gonna need therapy for the next 30 years." I mean, we just go down the rabbit hole, right? Probably gonna go to jail. Eh, Instead of that, we're able to come down to a reasonable level and think, "Oh, that happened to them too. They've got great kids. I mean, they're normal. They make mistakes sometimes, but they're great kids. Maybe my kids won't be ruined forever because I did this." Whatever the situation is, if we can share it with a friend, then we are much more likely to learn from it, decide if it needs to be handled differently at all, or if we just need to put away the blame and realize I made a mistake. I'm human. I am not super mom, and move on from that. And that I want to connect to the podcast from a couple of weeks ago where we talked about who you are in your story. Um, but before I do that, I want to talk about the third tenet of the self compassion, which is mindfulness. And what I just want to say that when we are mindful of a situation, first and foremost, that means that we are non judgmental. You have negative feelings. You don't suppress them, you don't push them down, you accept, "I'm I'm feeling like I made a bad choice here." You may be feeling sad about it, you may be feeling hurt or heartbroken about it, but it's not shame, you're not hiding it. You're just saying, "I feel these feelings," but they're not exaggerated, and you're not judging yourself in this place. That's being mindful, and that's that third step. I'm not judging myself, I'm accepting that I'm in a totally normal space, and I'm gonna share it with my friend and just prove that. But anyway, so I wanna go back and connect it to the podcast on story a few weeks ago, and I talked about how we want to come from a place of being the hero in our story, but that's not the superhero. Right? We are never gonna be superheroes. We couldn't there's no common humanity with superheroes, unfortunately. We don't all have a superpower. But if you remember the hero's journey is a journey of learning and enlightenment. And so we are on that hero's journey if we are learning from it, if we're shining a light on it. If we're blaming ourselves all the time, then we can't be on that journey. We are stuck. We're stuck away in a cave, in a dark place where no learning is happening, no growth is happening. We're just stuck there. We're seeing failure as shameful instead of just another attempt to get it right. And that difference in perspective is everything. If I'm ashamed of myself for a choice I made, I blame myself and feel more shame. I'm thinking, what if people find out about this? What if they find out what a horrible mother, what a horrible team member I am? So I hide it away. I disconnect from people and my negative feelings just grow. But if I shift that perspective to I am on a journey of learning, I'm on a journey of enlightenment, I'm going to share this with somebody. I'm going to reach out and connect. It's not easy to do. It's because, for a minute, you're still feeling all of those negative feelings. But if you can just reach out, connect, then you're on that journey. The hero has a mentor usually, or has a guide, a friend, a faithful companion along the way. There's a good reason for that. It's because growth is often about connection with another being. And if we're hiding away, we're not growing. So we can take our mistakes seriously. We can hide them away. We can blame ourselves. We can do all of those things. But if we are truly serious about our growth, then we are going to move our mistakes into the light. We're going to be kind to ourselves. We're going to share our common humanity with somebody else. Maybe we're going to laugh about it. So many times I've done things. I've gotten upset with one of the kids, and I'm just like, okay, you lose all of your technology for a month. I overreacted in that moment. And you know what usually happens? I usually end up punishing myself. Do you know what it's like for a kid to be without any technology for a month? That doesn't just affect them, that affects me too, right? What if I share that with somebody and we laugh about it? I won't do that again. That's learning. That's being mindful the next time it comes around. I'm going to feel what I felt when I did this the last time, but this time I'm going to put an interrupter in there, and I'm not going to go there again. I'm not going to punish both of us by taking away technology from it. So remember, there's no place for blame and growth to coexist. Take out the blame and shame. Give yourself a break. We are all humans going along this path of growth. All heroes fall off the path every once in a while. But we can get right back on and keep going. Get rid of the blame in your life. If you've made a mistake, share it with a friend, somebody that you trust, and realize that we're all just out there doing the best we can. That's the gift I'm trying to give to you today. We're all just out there doing the best we can. It's my honor to share my humanity with each of you each and every week. If you're looking for coaching, you can find me at sonyagreencoaching.com. I would love to talk with you, to work with you. If you have a work team that needs some support, you're working through an initiative, a project, seems to be not going well, I would love to talk to you or somebody on that team about how to help you move forward with that. That is helping high achieving women, helping high achieving teams is my hero's journey right now. So check me out on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find our podcast Facebook page at the Coach's Cup podcast. We'd love to hear from you. We have people who who come on and comment every week. And that helps me when I'm making decisions about podcast topics. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you do to connect with your common humanity. And maybe we can all laugh at some of our parenting mistakes together. They're not just parenting mistakes, but those seem to be the ones that people come back to again and again and accept the most blame for. So, all right. I'll see you next week.